In the quiet town of Manchester, the old courthouse stood as a testament to years of legal proceedings. The morning sun cast long shadows through dusty windows, illuminating the worn wooden benches and faded walls that had witnessed countless stories of justice. Judge William Peterson arrived early as he did every day, his weathered hands carefully arranged case files, his reading glasses perched on the edge of his nose. At 62, he had seen almost everything in his years on the bench. Or so he thought. Emily Thompson walked into the courtroom, her footsteps echoing softly against the marble floor. She was a young black woman in her early 30s, dressed in a crisp navy blue suit that spoke of professionalism and purpose. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, her posture straight and confident. Courtroom clerk, a middle-aged man named Robert, glanced up as she approached. He had worked here for decades and could sense something different about this woman. She wasn't like the usual defendants who shuffled nervously or looked defeated. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, focused. "Environmental protest violation," Robert announced quietly, his voice breaking the morning silence. Judge Peterson looked up, his initial glance carrying the weight of years of judicial experience. He saw a young black woman and immediately made a series of quick, unconscious judgments. In his mind, she was just another protester causing trouble, someone who needed to be taught a lesson about respecting the law. But Emily was not intimidated. She carried a leather briefcase that seemed to hold more than just legal documents. Her presence was calm, almost challenging. She stood waiting to be addressed, her eyes meeting the judge's with a quiet strength that caught him off guard. The morning light continued to stream through the windows, creating a soft glow around her. Outside, the town of Manchester was just waking up. People were heading to work, children to school, unaware of the small drama about to unfold in this old courthouse. Judge Peterson cleared his throat. He had a reputation for being strict, for maintaining order. Years of legal work had taught him to be firm, to not show weakness. Yet something about Emily made him pause. There was the intelligence in her eyes that suggested she was more than what she appeared to be. "Ms. Thompson," he began, his voice deep and authoritative, "you are charged with disrupting a legal environmental proceeding. Do you understand the seriousness of these charges?" Emily remained calm. She knew this moment could define her professional future. Everything she had worked for, her years of study, her commitment to environmental justice, seemed to hang in this single moment. The courtroom felt heavy with tension. The old clock on the wall ticked slowly, each second feeling like an eternity. Other lawyers and court staff watched quietly, sensing something unusual was happening. Judge Peterson shuffled some papers, expecting a typical response. He had heard countless excuses, seen countless defendants try to explain their way out of trouble. But Emily was different. Her silence was not weakness. It was preparation. In her mind, Emily remembered her journey, the years of studying environmental law, the countless nights spent researching, the passion that drove her to fight for communities impacted by environmental damage. This was more than a legal battle. It was a mission. The judge's gavel sat nearby, a symbol of his authority. He could easily dismiss her, make a quick judgment that would end her protest and potentially her career. But something in Emily's demeanor made him hesitate. Outside, a bird chirped, breaking the intense silence. The morning was bright, full of possibility. And in this old courthouse, a moment was about to unfold that would challenge assumptions, break down barriers, and reveal the true meaning of justice. Judge Peterson took a deep breath. Emily stood ready. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change both their lives forever. Emily Thompson took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice was clear and steady, filling the quiet courtroom with a quiet confidence that caught everyone by surprise. She wasn't going to apologize or beg for mercy. Instead, she was going to explain. "Your Honor," she started, "this isn't about breaking the law. This is about protecting our community's future." She opened her leather briefcase and pulled out a stack of carefully organized documents. The papers rustled softly as she placed them on the table. Maps, Scientific reports and community statements spread out like a carefully constructed argument. The first document showed the local river's pollution levels. Colorful graphs detailed chemical contamination that most people would never notice. Emily's finger traced the lines, explaining how industrial waste was slowly poisoning the water supply. Judge Peterson leaned forward, his initial skepticism slowly giving way to curiosity. He had seen many defendants, but none had come so prepared. Emily's presentation was different. It was professional, passionate, and backed by solid research. She spoke about the local wildlife. Photographs showed damaged ecosystems, rivers where fish could no longer survive, and landscapes changed by industrial pollution. Each image told a story of environmental destruction that most people ignored. "This isn't just about a protest," Emily explained. "This is about protecting the future of our children, our community, our environment." Her words carried a weight that went beyond legal arguments. She wasn't just reciting facts. She was telling a story of environmental justice. The courtroom fell silent, even the court clerk listening intently. Emily shared stories of local families affected by environmental damage. She talked about children with respiratory problems, about farmers whose lands had been contaminated. Each story was personal, human, real. Judge Peterson found himself drawn into her narrative. He had spent years seeing the world in black and white, in legal terms and technical violations. But Emily was showing him a more complex picture, a world where environmental protection was about human lives. The documents continued to tell their story. Scientific studies from respected universities, environmental impact assessments, community, health reports. Each piece of paper was a puzzle piece that revealed a larger, more troubling picture of environmental neglect. Some people in the courtroom began to shift in their seats. A few nodded quietly, recognizing the truth in Emily's words. Her passion was infectious, her argument carefully constructed. Emily spoke about her background, her years of environmental law study, her work with community organizations, her commitment to making a real difference. She wasn't just a protester, she was a trained professional fighting for justice. The morning light continued to stream through the courthouse windows. Outside, the town of Manchester went about its business, unaware of the important conversation happening inside these old walls. Judge Peterson adjusted his glasses, studying the documents. His initial judgment was crumbling. He saw now that Emily wasn't someone to be quickly dismissed. She was a serious professional with a genuine cause. "Ms. Thompson," he interrupted, his voice softer now. "These are significant claims. How do you propose to address these environmental challenges?" Emily smiled. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She began to outline practical solutions, ways to work with industries, implement better environmental regulations, create sustainable practices that protected both business and community interests. Her defense was more than an argument. It was a vision of hope, a pathway to a better future. She wasn't just pointing out problems, she was offering solutions. The courtroom felt different now. The tension had transformed into something else, a sense of possibility, of understanding. Judge Peterson realized this was no ordinary case. This was a moment that could change perspectives, challenge assumptions. As Emily continued speaking, the old courthouse seemed to breathe with her words. Her defense was unexpected, powerful, human. And in that moment, everything was about to change. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath as Emily continued her presentation. Judge Peterson studied her credentials, his initial skepticism slowly melting away. Her Harvard environmental law degree was impressive, but it was more than just a piece of paper. Emily's background told a story of determination. She had grown up in a small industrial town where pollution had damaged her community. This wasn't just a job for her, it was a personal mission. Her research papers, neatly organized in her briefcase, represented years of dedicated work. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she explained quietly. "I'm here to protect our future." Her previous litigation cases were remarkable. She had successfully challenged large corporations, forcing them to clean up environmental damage and implement better practices. Each case was a testament to her skill and commitment. The court clerk, Robert, found himself leaning forward. He had seen countless defendants, but Emily was different. Her passion was genuine, her arguments well-researched and thoughtful. Judge Peterson began to see beyond his initial impressions. Emily wasn't just a young black woman protesting. She was a professional environmental lawyer with deep knowledge and genuine commitment to community protection. She pulled out additional documents, community impact studies, scientific research, environmental health reports. Each page told a story of environmental challenges and potential solutions. Her presentation was methodical, intelligent, and deeply moving. Our environment is more than just a legal issue, Emily said. It's about human lives. It's about our children's future. The courtroom grew quieter. Even the old walls seemed to listen. Judge Peterson noticed how Emily's voice carried a mixture of professional confidence and genuine passion. She wasn't angry or confrontational. She was presenting facts, telling a story that needed to be heard. Her recent work had focused on protecting local communities from industrial pollution. She showed detailed maps of contaminated water sources, graphs of increasing health risks, photographs of damaged ecosystems. Each piece of evidence was carefully documented, professionally presented. The judge's initial judgment began to crumble. He had spent decades on the bench, often seeing the world in simple black and white. But Emily was showing him a more complex reality, a world where environmental protection was about human dignity and future survival. Some people in the courtroom wiped away quiet tears. Emily's presentation wasn't just about legal arguments. It was about real human experiences, about communities fighting to survive. Her credentials spoke volumes. Multiple published research papers demonstrated her academic rigor. Previous successful environmental litigation cases showed her practical expertise. She wasn't just talking, she had proven results. Judge Peterson adjusted his glasses, looking more closely at her documents. He realized he was witnessing something extraordinary, a young professional challenging the system not through anger, but through knowledge and compassion. Emily's story was about more than environmental law. It was about hope. It was about believing that positive change was possible, that one person could make a difference. These contamination levels are unacceptable, she explained, pointing to a detailed map. But we have solutions. We can work together to create real, meaningful change. The morning light continued to stream through the courthouse windows. Outside, the town of Manchester went about its day, unaware of the important conversation happening. Inside these old walls, Judge Peterson felt something shift inside him. Years of judicial experience had taught him to be cautious, to maintain distance. But Emily's presentation was breaking down those professional barriers. Her final documents showed potential solutions, ways industries could reduce pollution, methods for cleaning contaminated water, strategies for protecting local ecosystems. She wasn't just criticizing, she was offering a path forward. The courtroom felt different now. The initial tension had transformed into something else, a sense of possibility, of hope. Emily had done more than defend herself. She had challenged everyone's understanding of environmental justice. As she concluded her presentation, the old courthouse seemed to breathe with her words. Something remarkable was happening, a moment of true understanding of potential transformation. Judge Peterson felt uncomfortable. The silence in the courtroom was heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts and growing understanding. He realized his initial reaction had been based on something deeper than legal procedure. It was about unconscious bias. Years of judicial experience had taught him many things, but today he was learning something unexpected. The young black woman standing before him was not just a defendant, she was a professional, a voice of reason, a defender of community rights. "Ms. Thompson," he said, his voice softer now, "would you be willing to discuss your environmental work in more detail?" Emily nodded. She understood this was more than just a legal moment. This was an opportunity for real communication, for breaking down barriers that had existed for too long. She began explaining her recent work protecting local communities from industrial pollution. Her passion was evident in every word. She spoke about families affected by contaminated water, about children suffering from respiratory problems, about farmers losing their lands to industrial waste. The court clerk, Robert, found himself completely captivated. He had worked in this courthouse for decades, but he had never witnessed a presentation quite like this. Emily wasn't just presenting facts. She was telling human stories. Judge Peterson listened carefully. He noticed how Emily used data, but never lost the human connection. Each statistic was connected to a real person, a real community. Her approach was both professional and deeply compassionate. She shared stories of communities that had fought back, of small victories against large corporations. These weren't just environmental battles, they were human rights struggles. Emily showed how environmental protection was about protecting people's lives, their futures. The morning light continued to stream through the courthouse windows. Outside, the world continued, unaware of the important conversation happening inside these old walls. But something significant was changing in this room. Judge Peterson realized he was witnessing something remarkable. His years of judicial experience had often kept him distant, objective. But Emily was showing him a different way of seeing the world, a way that combined professional expertise with genuine human care. Her presentation included detailed maps, scientific reports, community testimonies. But more than that, it included hope. Hope that things could change, that communities could be protected, that justice could be more than just a legal concept. The other lawyers in the courtroom watched quietly. Some looked surprised, others impressed. Emily was challenging their understanding of environmental law, of professional conduct, of justice itself. These are not just environmental issues, Emily explained. These are human issues. These are about our right to clean water, clean air, a healthy environment. Her words carried a weight that went beyond legal arguments. She spoke about interconnectedness, how environmental damage affects everyone, how protecting the environment is about protecting human lives. Judge Peterson found himself questioning everything he thought he knew. His years of experience had taught him to be cautious, to maintain professional distance. But Emily was showing him a more holistic approach to justice. She shared photographs of transformed communities, areas where environmental interventions had made real differences, children playing in clean parks, farmers with healthy crops, rivers returning to life. Each image told a story of hope, of possibility. The courtroom felt different now. The initial tension had transformed into something else, a sense of understanding, of potential change. Emily had done more than defend herself. She had challenged everyone's understanding of justice, of environmental protection. Robert, the court clerk, noticed how Judge Peterson's demeanor had changed. The stern, distant judge was now leaning forward, genuinely listening. Something remarkable was happening. A moment of true connection, of breaking down old barriers. Emily's presentation was more than a legal defense. It was a lesson in humanity, in seeing beyond surface differences, in understanding the deep connections that bind us all. As she concluded, the old courthouse seemed to breathe with her words. A moment of transformation was unfolding, a moment that could change everything. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Peterson made his decision. He looked at Emily with newfound respect, understanding that this moment was about much more than a legal case. "The charges are dismissed," he announced, his voice clear and firm. But he wasn't finished. In a surprising turn of events, Judge Peterson did something unexpected. He invited Emily to present a workshop on environmental law for local judicial professionals. It was more than an invitation. It was a recognition of her expertise. "Your work is crucial," he told her, his voice filled with genuine respect. "We need more voices like yours bringing attention to these critical issues." Emily's eyes glistened with emotion. What could have been a moment of defeat had transformed into an opportunity for education and change. Her years of hard work, her dedication to environmental justice were finally being recognized. The other lawyers in the courtroom watched in amazement. Some looked surprised, others inspired. This wasn't just a legal proceeding, this was a moment of true understanding. Outside, the Manchester morning continued. People walked along the streets, unaware of the important conversation happening inside the old courthouse. But something significant had changed. Judge Peterson shared his own story. He talked about growing up in a small industrial town, about seeing environmental changes over the decades. Emily listened, realizing that understanding comes from sharing experiences. The court clerk, Robert, watched quietly. He had seen countless cases, but never one quite like this. Emily had done more than defend herself. She had opened everyone's eyes to a larger truth about environmental justice. Emily began explaining her vision. She talked about creating better environmental protection strategies, about working with communities and industries to find sustainable solutions. Her approach was practical, hopeful, transformative. Judge Peterson realized this was more than a legal moment. This was about breaking down barriers, about seeing beyond initial impressions, about understanding the deeper connections that bind communities together. The morning light continued to stream through the courthouse windows. It felt like a metaphor, light breaking through darkness, understanding replacing judgment. As they talked, Emily shared stories of communities she had helped. Families who got clean water, farmers who saved their lands, children who could breathe easier. Each story was a testament to the power of dedicated work and genuine compassion. The judge invited her to develop training programs for other judicial professionals. He wanted to create a new approach to environmental law, one that understood the human stories behind the legal documents. Other lawyers in the courtroom began to listen more closely. Emily's presentation had changed something fundamental. It wasn't just about legal arguments anymore. It was about human connection, about understanding, about hope. Robert, the court clerk, found himself taking notes. He realized this was a moment that could change how environmental law was understood and practiced. Emily's eyes reflected a mixture of emotions: pride, hope, determination. She had entered the courthouse facing potential punishment and was leaving with an opportunity to create real change. Judge Peterson understood now that justice was more than following rules. It was about understanding, about seeing the human stories behind the legal documents. "We need more professionals like you," he told Emily. "People who see the bigger picture, who understand that environmental protection is about protecting human lives." The old courthouse seemed to breathe with new understanding. Walls that had witnessed countless legal battles now witnessed something more. A moment of true connection, of breaking down barriers. As Emily and Judge Peterson shook hands, both understood that this encounter was about more than a legal case. It was about challenging preconceptions, about building mutual respect, about creating hope. The morning continued. Outside, the world went on. But inside this old courthouse, something remarkable had happened. A conversation had opened doors. Changed perspectives created possibility. Emily's journey was far from over. But today she had won something more important than a legal battle. She had won understanding, respect, and a chance to create real change. The courthouse stood as a witness, a testament to the power of genuine communication, of seeing beyond surface differences, of understanding our shared human experience.